It is 6:50 and we are live. We are live, folks. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're going to get started. We got 10 minutes, 10-minute countdown. And thank you for joining us, those that are on. And we appreciate you joining us. So hang tight. Let's let everybody get on. And we'll start in a few minutes. All right. All right. We are. We are live. We are on. We are good. We are good to go. Well, it's 6:53. We've got a few minutes. Let everybody come on, get settled. We'll do the candle lighting at 7. In the meantime, I'm going to play a few songs.
Yeah, play a few songs.
Play a few songs. Ine matobu manayim a little bit here so you can be in the Facebook picture, see? So let's do a screen, let's do a blocking. There you go. Now you're, oh yeah, there we go. Well, they'd rather see you than me, so that's great. I'm sure.
You think?
Well, except that the
You think?
I do, except the YouTube, your head's a little cut off. Your head, no, you got to, yeah, there you go, get back. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. So let's move this out of the way for a moment. There you go. Oh, you're beautiful. You are gorgeous.
You think? I'm sorry, did I throw you off?
No, that's okay. The guitar fell. You know, in that movie, The Last Waltz, which was the last concert that the band gave, I think it was Eric Clapton. He was up there. He was doing that. His guitar slipped, and Robbie Robertson picked up right where he left off. And Eric's like, huh. How to welcome some people. Who we got? Degwai, how you doing? Good to see you. We're going to wave back. And Kathy Barraza, thank you so much for joining you, Miss UNL. And Francis Dowda. Dowds, hi, how you doing, Francis? And we have Bev Hoffman and Debbie.
Of course, Bev. Love you, Bev. Love you, Bev. And Helene and Harold, love you.
And Debbie.
Oh, Debbie, are you there? Oh, I love you, Debbie.
Let me see if I remember this song. Sorry. Oh, trying to get camera space here, right?
Well, get the song together, baby.
There you go. Let me see if I remember this song. Go up on the house in Tel Aviv. I forgot the words, but since it's in Hebrew and I can mumble it, nobody knows what I'm saying. Oh my gosh, am I live?
Yeah.
Darn.
Yeah, you're effing live.
Hey, it's Shabbat. Well, not yet. Not until we light those candles and the sun goes
That's right. Is it time?
No, we've got another 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go. What else we got? Jose. Let me get my little capo up here.
Yeah, can you get this together?
I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Oh, say shalom ben Hallelujah, say shalom aleichem. De'al Kol Israel. Amen.
Matthew! Shabbat shalom, Matthew! Say it louder. Say it louder. Shabbat shalom, Matthew.
Just a few warm-up songs. Shalom say shalom aleichem. De'al Kol Israel. May he who makes peace make peace for all of us along the world. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleichem kol Yisrael.
Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom.
Shalom aleichem kol Yisrael.
All right. I'm sorry? Absolutely.
All right.
I will give you a book. There you go. You got it. I need a book to have.
All right, so I'm singing, the dogs are barking. Oh. All right, so I have 7 o'clock, and we are going to start the service. It is traditional to start our Friday night service on page 6 in our Siddur Hadash, if you're using this. If you're not, if you happen to be using this as a reference, this pamphlet, you can just follow the flow. And Ma Tovu, how goodly are your dwellings, O Jacob, your sanctuaries, O Israel. I've said this, but we have some new people joining, so I'm going to repeat the story. So we're starting the book of Numbers, actually next week. Next week's portion will be Numbers. And in Numbers, there's a lot that goes on in the wilderness, one of which is where a Moabite warrior named Balak sends his prophet, actually he's more like a wizard, Balaam, to go out and curse the Israelites. And he sent out Balaam because Balaam supposedly knew the time of the day when God was angry. And remember that. Remember that I said about God being angry, because that's going to be part of tonight's sermon. So he was going to curse the Israelites at that time. God, however, intervenes. Hashem says, no, I got another idea. Instead of 3 curses, he proclaimed 3 blessings. God put words in his mouth. And the last blessing was this: how goodly are your dwellings, O Jacob, your sanctuaries, O Israel. And it is customary, the rabbis liked this so much that they deemed it, they mandated that this is the first thing you say when you come into a synagogue. One of the great things about summer, doing services Friday night in the spring and summer, starting at 7, is that we can light the candles and be halakhically correct. Halakha comes from the word cholech, which means to go. It means going in the right way. Halakha, Jewish law. So I'm going to invite the Rebbitzin to come on up and light our Shabbat candles. And if we're going to light these candles too, let's light these first, since these are not Shabbat candles, because once we light the Shabbat candles, according to halakha, you don't light a flame. And that's why, by the way, as we discussed during our Shabbat across America, we cover our eyes when we light the Sabbath candles, because technically you say the blessing and then you do the activity for which you said the blessing. However, you can't do that on Shabbat, because once you say the blessing and you light the candles, that's it. So you got to kind of do it in reverse. You got to light. So once you say the blessing, you've actually done it. So it means you can't light the candles because you've instituted Shabbat. So what we do is we say the blessing first, and we kind of cover our eyes because we're a little embarrassed. But it's a gesture.
First of all, I'm going to light these candles.
Excellent. Okay.
Because after I light these,
We'll light the Shabbat candles, and that's
we
it.
will light the Shabbat candles, and we will not be doing any more lighting.
That's right. Until tomorrow night when we do hotel.
That's right. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'halik ner. Blessed art thou, our Lord our God, who commands us to light the Sabbath light.
Amen. And I will put on my talit. Now, of course, we don't put on talitot in the evening and for evening services. And why don't we? Because the commandment says tzitzit. Those are these knots that we tie that remind us of the commandments. It says when you look at them and when it's night, it's dark, you can't see, so we don't do it. So that's the halacha there. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit. And let's get started with our Kabbalah Shabbat service. Kabbalah, you know that word, it means to receive. So we are now receiving the Sabbath onto ourselves now that we've lit the candles. And we will start Kabbalah Shabbat with Shalom Aleichem, peace unto everybody. And if you're using this book, Shidur Chadash, if you have that, we are on page 16. And I guess you guys can tell me, since I don't have my glasses on, so you can't see. And I guess we'll be turning the light on a little bit.
Go ahead. You want me to turn the lights on?
No, I think we're good right now. Let's let the candles supply the light for you. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharim, Malachei Elyon, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. Melech Malachim Lamim Kadosh Baruch Uni L'Shalom Malachim Shalom Malachim Melech Malachim Kadosh Baruch. Take them shalom aleichem, shalom aleichem, Melech malachem lamim kadosh baruch. So in very traditional Jewish congregations, when they do a Friday night service and they do Shalom Aleichem, they do it 3 times. And we do certain prayers 3 times, like Yom Kippur, Shema Yisrael. We do that 3 times when we're closing it out, because 3 is strength. When you do something for 3 times, it's strength. Just like when we do Birkat Hamazon, which is the prayer that we say after we've had a meal where we've had bread, then we do, we need 3 people to say Rabbatai Nevarat. Everybody eat. Everybody join in. So now we're going to start with our series of Psalms that start off the Kabbalat Shabbat. There are 5 Psalms, 96 to 90. What is it? 95 to 99. Now the Psalms from 90 to 100 are ascribed to Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu. King David was walking down below the palace in the catacombs, found some writings from Moses, and he turned them into these Psalms. So let's do our usual L'chut Ranina on page 22, first 2 verses of Psalm 95, and then we'll turn the page to page 24. We'll do the first 2 verses of Shiru Adonai. We'll do that then on the other side of the page in English, and then we'll drop down 4 lines from the bottom to Yismachu Hashemayim, and we'll see how that goes. Please follow along, sing, you know the words. Turn the page. Page 24. Oh, in English, on the other side of the page. Sing unto the Lord, God new songs. Sing unto the Lord, all we sing unto the Lord, yes, praise God's name. That's how we should be. Here's the favorite part. 4 lines from the bottom. Sufficiently say that we've had a good start to a Kabbalah Shabbat. So now, let's do a responsive reading, one of the Psalms. And again, if you have your book, we are going to do, I think last week we did, the last time we met, we did Psalm 95. Let's do 96 on page 25. And the rabbits and I will go back and forth for you. Please follow along. And or just enjoy. Sing on. Go ahead. Start. You can start.
Sing unto the Lord new songs. Sing unto the Lord all the earth.
Sing unto the Lord. Praise God's name. Make known God's salvation day by day.
Declare God's glory among the nations. Proclaim God wonders among all peoples.
For great is the Lord, greatly to be praised. Who alone is to be revered. Who alone is to be revered is God.
The gods of the heathens are worthless, but the Lord made the heavens.
Splendor and majesty are before God. Strength and beauty are in God's sanctuary.
Ascribe to the Lord, O families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and might.
Render to God the honor due God's name. Come unto God's courts with a gift offering.
Declare among the nations the Lord reigns. The world is set firm. God's justice prevails.
Let the heavens rejoice and the earth be glad. Let the sea and all within it roar praise.
Let the field and all within it exult. Let the trees of the forest break into song.
For God comes to judge the world in righteousness, to judge the nations by divine truth.
Amen.
Amen. So last time we didn't, this week we will. Well, let's turn to page 38 for Lecha Dodi. And we'll do the first three verses, and then we'll turn the page and we'll do the last verse. And, we got a lot of people joining us tonight, and we're just so happy to have you here with us. I know it's, we all want to be meeting in person, and, we really can't wait. And in fact, we're planning something special for the first time we all get together in person. And we're also thinking that when we do start our gatherings, when it is safe and we're doing whatever we need to do, to keep safe, then maybe we'll continue to live stream for those that can't join us physically, or this is the way you see the service. So on page 38 is Lecha Dodi, and again, first three verses, and then the last one on the next page. And as we do that, we will rise if you're sitting, and we'll face the entrance of wherever you're at, and we'll welcome the Sabbath Queen. That's the metaphor. First verse. Second verse. Roasting and there's a top. Sometimes I say the Shabbat, the la 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 the la the Shabbat, the la the Shabbat, Make that spell and hear the new light. Who needs to be in Turn the page and rise. We face the entrance of the synagogue. Right where at. If you're standing, you may be seated. So that was Craig Taubman version. It was really more like a klezmer, but I kind of jazzed it up. The first time I heard it, that's what I thought. Kind of jazzed it up. I hope Craig forgives me. Craig Taubman, for those of you who don't know who he is a kind of what we call a cantorial soloist. Not a professionally trained cantor, but he does a lot of singing, and he's adapted a lot of songs, a lot of Hebrew traditional songs for modern times, because we want to bring some new, how can we say, life? I don't know if that's the right word. We want to make Judaism more relevant. Let's put it that way. It's a beautiful religion. It can adapt to various things, but we want to really go for it. So as we turn the page, our page in our book, the Siddur Chadash, or if you're using the pamphlet, we just turn the page to the Sabbath Psalm, which is in the Siddur Chadash. We're going to do a responsive reading on page 43. I'm going to ask the Rebbitzin to help me out on this. And what it is, they call this the Sabbath Psalm. Every day of the week has a very specific psalm that was recited by the Levites in the ancient temple. Let's move. Yeah, let's move over. There we go. Which you be seen on the Facebook. There you go. So they had a song for every day, a psalm for every day of the week. And they did that to honor that the corresponding day of creation, but they also did that to keep track of what day it was. So let's do a responsive reading. So this is the Sabbath song. This is the psalm that was designated for Shabbat that the Levites sang. Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, sing a song of Shabbat, Kodesh. And there's nothing in here about Sabbath, but it was chosen for its theme of divine justice, that everything comes full circle and everything is completed, especially justice. So let's continue on page 43 with the responsive reading.
It is good to thank you, O Lord, to sing your praises to your exalted name.
To proclaim your love every morning and your faithfulness every night.
To the sound of the 10-string lyre with the voice of music in the heart.
Your works, O Lord, bring me gladness. Of your deeds we sing with joy.
How great are your deeds, O Lord. How profound are your designs.
The simple cannot comprehend. The foolish cannot grasp this.
Though the wicked may seem to thrive like grass, and their doers of evil seem to flourish.
Their doom is sure to come, for yours is the ultimate triumph.
Those who oppose you will perish. The workers of iniquity will be routed.
You have given me extraordinary power. You are like one who has been anointed.
I see the feet of my foes. I hear the doom of my enemies.
The righteous will flourish like the palm tree. They will thrive like the cedar of Lebanon.
Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God.
Even in old age, they will bear fruit, retaining their vigor and their strength.
Proclaiming that the Lord is just, my rock, in whom there is no unrighteousness.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Well, that's live TV for you. Or live internet, I should say. So it's customary in the conservative Judaism movement that when we do a psalm in English, when we do a responsive reading, we do the last couple of verses, which I believe is called the Hatfa, which means the dessert or the end. And here what we do is we do the song Sadi Katamar, which is the Hebrew of the last four verses that we read. So please join with me on the bottom of page 42 if you're using the book. Then on the bottom, at the very bottom, you've got those funny looking English words in italics, which is really the transliteration. It's the English alphabet rendering of the Hebrew. Eres Palanon is great to me. The bed the Oh, the shining Melanani, So in a Jewish service, in a Hebrew service, it is in various parts, various sections. So that was the Kabbalat Shabbat part, which, by the way, as the name sounds, is only during Shabbat. Although during festivals we may do some of this when they occur on the Sabbath. But that is the end of that part of the service. We are now going into the Ma'ariv. Ma'ariv is the Hebrew word for evening. And when we go from one part of the service to another, we want to sanctify God. And we use that break as kind of a place to do a sanctification. And sanctification is a Kaddish. And the Kaddish means holy. Kaddish means holy. It's that word. And the Kaddish we're going to do is the mourner's Kaddish. We have kind of a list of names, which we will say later for those that have passed on. But if you're observing a Yortzeit, or somebody has died recently within this year, you're still within that year, or you just want to stand for all the people that may not have people to say their Kaddish for, or just out of respect, please do so now. And let's turn to page, if you're using this book, it's on page 124.
We have some people yelling out to you. Debbie 70 says, hey, Stephen. Bev says Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, okay.
Bev says Shabbat Shalom.
Hi, Bev.
If you want to say Shabbat Shalom, Bev. And Levan Gray says Shabbat Shalom.
Day White, yep.
Lisa Doran, Shabbat Shalom. Lisa Morgenstein, Shabbat Shalom. Yana, Shabbat Shalom.
Yana, hi. Family, the whole family. All right. And was it Rebecca Doran, did you say? Or, all right, we'll get to it later. The Dorans. So the Mourner's Kaddish is on page 124. You may rise if you like. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, Hamad divrach v'rutei v'yamlich ma'atei, hayechon v'yomechon, hayerecha beit Yisrael, Agalal v'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah v'barach la'olam v'omei maya v'barach v'yishtabach v'yitzapar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitaleh shmei dekudsha v'ruchu. V'elam min kol b'rchata v'shirata v'shvachata v'nechmata da'amiran ba'ama v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Useh shalom b'mromav, v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'yalkol Yisrael, v'yamru amen.
Amen.
So the Mourner's Kaddish, the English, and actually this is really Aramaic. It's not Hebrew, it's Aramaic. In English translation, we say magnified and sanctified is the great name of God in the world created according to the divine will. May God's sovereignty soon be established. Now, that almost sounds counterintuitive, that somebody who is in mourning would praise God's name. But one of the reasons that a Kaddish or a purification is done in a minyan or 10 Jews that have been bar bat mitzvah is because it says, first of all, the children of Israel will sanctify God, and the children is plural. So they said, okay, that must mean 10 minyan. But also, when you're in a synagogue and you've got a group of people, to hear somebody who just lost someone, and what do we do when there's a tragedy? We blame it on God, right? But to hear somebody who just endured a tragedy to praise God is a really powerful statement. And that's one of the reasons why we say the Mourner's Kaddish or any Kaddish in a group of 10. Do you know that? I just learned that. It's amazing. There's so many reasons for doing things in Judaism. So we're now going to go back to page 50 in this book as we start. More powerful, yes, that too. Mm-hmm. He does. Yes.
That's right.
And yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, and let's say hi to Becky and Dave.
Becky and Dave.
And Harold.
Okay.
And everybody's joining in.
Becky and Dave, Harold, yes, and everybody that's joining in. And if you see anybody, please just shout them out when we have that break. So now we're going to start the call to worship. This is the regular Ma'ariv service, the regular evening service. It's a similar service to what we do every day on weekdays as well, except that there's some extra prayers and stuff. So on page 50, we start the Baruch. Baruch et Adonai Amavarach. Congregation responds. Baruch Adonai Amavarach le'olam va'ed. And I reply, Baruch Adonai Amavarach le'olam va'ed. So let's do responsive reading. A lot of times I do this in Hebrew. I like the Hebrew, but since we don't know who has a book and who doesn't, I don't want to say too much Hebrew for people that may not understand what I'm saying. So let's do responsive reading on the bottom of page 51. And I'll start this. O Lord, your word brings on the evening twilight. The heavens proclaim your glory. We, your creatures on earth, behold and wonder your endless earth. Help us to recognize your guiding power in distant galaxies and in our own souls.
Teach us your law of righteousness and love, so that your spirit may govern our lives.
Source of peace, bless our worship. May our meditations find favor in your sight. So that, like the changing seasons, the days, the nights, our lives too will proclaim your glory. Amen. This is the first of the two blessings before the Shema. This section of worship centers around the Shema, the watchword. Hear, O Israel. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. This is the first blessing, saying that, some people believe that heavenly bodies have powers. This says they don't. It's all about God. So a little bit of Hebrew, what we just read. Maver yomu maybe Lila, Mabdil ben yomu ben Lila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El Chayvakayam, Amidim lo aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Ma'ariv Aradim. Amen. Praise the Lord our God, who brings on the evening dusk. We turn the page to the second blessing prior to the recitation of the Shema. And this talks about how with everlasting love, God loves the house of Israel. He loves all of us. He loves all of us. We're just saying that because we're Jews. And therefore, when we lie down, we rise up, we'll speak of your commandments. They are the life and length of our days. Ahavat olam et Yisrael Hamahata Torah u'mitzvot u'kimu mishpatim v'nadeta Al-Kain Adonai Eloheinu v'shachneinu v'echuvenu V'asiyach v'techa v'nishpach v'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha Elam va'ed Im chayenu v'orach yameinu v'orach yameinu May your love never depart from us. Baruch atah Adonai, praise are you Hashem. Oh hey, Lamo Yisrael. And bestower of love upon your people Israel. We now come to page 54 with the Shema. We'll do this in Hebrew and then English. We'll do it according to the ancient cantillations that the Masoretes ascribed to the Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. An undertone. Now the V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha u'chol nafshecha u'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shachlecha u'vecha Ukshartam lo dayadecha v'hayu l'totafot beinecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish arecha. Let's read that in English. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. You shall take to heart these words which I command you this day. You shall teach them diligently to your children, speaking of them and when you are at home and when you are away, when you lie down at night, rise up in the morning. You shall bind them as a sign upon your arm. This is the felon, and they shall be a reminder above your eyes. You shall inscribe them on the doorposts of your home, mezuzot, and on the gates, on your gates. So the question comes up every now and then, if the Shema is the most important prayer and it's from the Torah, why don't we stand out of respect? And the answer is, and this is why even when we study Torah, we don't rise, because, well, God's still waiting for us to be holy enough to be able to stand and observe. That's why Baruch Shem Kavod, we only do that silently for two reasons. Number one, it's not in the Torah. It's a midrash that Jacob said to his sons. This is at the end of the book of Genesis, when he lost the vision of prophecy because he thought maybe one of his sons would be evil. And the son said, no, we assure you we'll keep the commandments that you taught us. And he said, yeah, blessed. Praise be the name of God who's glorious. Praise be his sovereignty forever and ever. And the other reason is that this is an angelic recitation. The only time we're holy enough to say this, you guessed it, Yom Kippur. Let's continue with our service. And we'll go to page, Chris, let's do a responsive reading on the bottom of page 58. And this is an interpretation, not necessarily an exact translation, but an interpretation of the first blessing after the Shema.
On the bottom of 58?
58, deliverance from peril.
We acknowledge that there is but one universal God, and that to God's service Israel stands eternally committed.
We recognize in God the power that has enabled us to triumph over defeat, persecution, and oppression.
For God wills that we be free to use our powers for worthy ends, unfeathered by the arbitrary rule of any mortal.
It was God who redeemed us from the Egyptian bondage and delivered us from the despotism of the pharaohs.
Whenever human triumphs assert divine authority, oppressing or exploiting others,
the hardening of their hearts proves their own undoing. Their unrelenting arrogance writes their doom.
Therefore, we will not be discouraged or dismayed when unrighteous powers rise up against us.
Though enemy hosts pursue us, we shall remember how our ancestors were saved at the sea.
We shall recall in every age the words of triumph with which they gave thanks for their deliverance from peril.
And we now turn to page 60. The bottom of the page, about 6 lines up. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Norah tehilot oseh pelech. Malchutecha ra'u banecha. Okay, ayam lifnei Moshe. Se'eli anu v'amru. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki bada Adonai et Yaakov. V'lo biyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai va'Yisrael. Amen. Praise to you, O Lord our God, Redeemer, Baal, Israel. Actually, let's, why don't you stay up here because we're going to do another responsive reading on page 62 and 63. This is the second of the two prayers that come after the Shema. The Hashkivenu prayer is recited every night before we go to bed because it asks God to protect us when we're at our most vulnerable when we're asleep. So let's do peace means more than quiet on the bottom of page 63. That's a beautiful prayer.
Help us, O Lord, to lie down in peace, but teach us that peace means more than quiet.
Remind us that if we are to be at peace at night, we must take heed how we live by day.
Grant to us the peace that comes from honest dealings, so that no fear of discovery will haunt our sleep.
Rid us of resentments and hatreds, which rob us of the peace we crave.
Liberate us from enslaving habits, which disturb us and give us no rest.
May we inflict no pain, bring no shame, and seek no profit from another's loss.
May we so live we can face the world with serenity and with grace.
May we feel no remorse at night for what we have done during the day.
May we lie down in peace tonight and awaken tomorrow to a richer and fuller life.
Ushmor tzeitenu uloenu, l'chaim u'shalom me'ata v'ad olam, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, ha'porei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. So there is actually, we say that Jews are obligated, kind of, to pray 3 times a day. There's actually, though, 4 prayer services. There's actually a prayer service that's called the bedtime Shema, and this is one of the prayers in that bedtime Shema. In fact, the first prayer, I put that on Facebook today about how I forgive everyone and anyone who's ever hurt me. And what we do, that's a way of obtaining peace before you go to sleep. And the reason I mention that is because a lot of what we just read kind of takes its theme from that particular prayer. So I just thought it was interesting because that's what, you want peace in your life. And how do we achieve peace? People talk about forgiveness, but in Judaism, you just leave it to God. You just say, okay, what happened to me happened to me. But I know that in the end, like we said in the Sabbath Psalm, even though people of evil seem to flourish, the humans sure to come, because yours, God's, is the ultimate triumph. So that actually kind of ends the Ma'ariv service. We now go to the Shamru, which was inserted for Shabbat, and this is right out of the Torah. And that's on page 64, in the book. Some people, some traditional Jews, stand for this with the advent of the Amidah, which we're going to come to in a couple of minutes. Veshamru Bnei Yisrael et Hashavat Asokek Hashavat V'derot HaKodesh Beni uven Bnei Yisrael Oti Leolam Veshamru Bnei Yisrael et Hashavat Asokek Hashavat V'derot HaKodesh Sheshet Yamim, Asadonai, Asadonai, Hashamayim, Shemru B'nai Yisrael, Et HaShabbat, HaSodet HaShabbat, V'torot HaMordim, V'yomash V'yi, Shabbat V'yinapash, Shabbat V'yinapash, Shabbat V'yinapash, V'shemru B'nai Yisrael, Et HaShabbat, HaSodet HaShabbat, V'torot HaMordim. The children of Israel shall observe the Shabbat, maintaining it throughout the generations as an everlasting covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel for all time. In 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth. On the seventh day the Lord ceased his work and rests.
Oh, you need to say hi to people.
Okay.
And Diane Hammond.
Rebecca Dorn, okay. Diane Heyman. Oh, hi, Diane.
Yeah.
Sean, how you doing, Sean? A comedian? Who? I'm sorry? Morgenstern. Yeah.
Yeah,
Michael, hi. How you
Barbara
doing?
Levine.
Barbara Levine.
Barbara.
Barbara is the sister of Ann Serrano, who was my teacher in high school.
Did you say hi to Debbie and Beth Hoffman?
Bev Hoffman. Hello, Debbie, 70. Yep, got all them.
And
The dog one. Yeah, dog one. I did. Calissa. Hi, Calissa. Hope you're feeling good. Morganson. Okay. All right, we'll go back to that later. That's all right. So we're going to do the Chatzi Kaddish, which is Chatzi means half, and it's the short Kaddish as we go into the Amidah, which is the standing silent prayer. But we're going to do the 7 faceted blessings, since not all of you have books. What I'd like to ask you, is that later on, in a little while, we're going to be doing a Misha Bera. That's a prayer, who shall be blessed, and it's a prayer that we say for all those who are sick, or ill, and in need of blessings and prayers and healing. So, since we're kind of on a little bit of a delay, start sending those names in if you know anybody that's not going to be on this list, or you think may not be on this. So we go to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 68. Not 68, on page 66, the Hasidic version. Yekadal yekadash shemei rabba ve'alvad rabudei yamalech rabudei ha'evon yomevon u'chayedech beit Yisrael v'kalav v'zmandavi v'yemaru 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 amen. Ishte Rama Bebarak Rehalam Rehalaya Yitbarak Yishtabak Yitbarak Yitabam Yitaseva Yitatar Yitaleva Yitabam Shmei Shmei Kudisha Kudisha Britu Taela Minto Dekata Dekata Bashivata Yoshka Tabarakata Tabiratela Bayemberu Bayemberu Bayemberu. So we're going to go to the 7 faceted blessing. I'm going to give you all a couple of seconds here to say a couple of prayers of thankfulness. Remember, we don't ask for anything that it's Shabbat. We're just grateful for what we have. So say a couple of prayers, and then we'll turn to page 82. And we'll start that. I'm going to get a little bit of water real quick.
You want me to bring me something?
Not right here. Thank you. Since there was no sacrifice in the temple in the evening, There was only a morning sacrifice and one at dusk. Um, the rabbis, when the Second Temple was destroyed, they were putting together the prayer service, and there was a debate whether they should have even not just the Amidah, which substitutes for the sacrifice, but whether they should even have a service at all. And the compromise was, we'll do the service, we'll do the Amidah, the standing silent prayer that's meant to take the place of the sacrifice that they did. We just won't repeat it because typically it's done on your own, and then you sit down, and then there's a repetition. So what they did do for just for Shabbat is they composed the seven faceted blessing, which incorporates each of the seven blessings of the Amidah. And that's kind of like their way around not standing for not doing the repetition or the public reading of the Amidah. So on page 82, and I am going to stand since this is typically a standing service. You folks feel free to observe as you like. On page 82, there's first the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Konei Shamayim Va'aretz. And we're on page 82. You know what I have to do? Well, besides the wine for the blessing.
I'll get the wine.
Thank you. Everybody loves this because it's so beautiful. Oh, yes, I Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they beat their swords and plowshares and have war no more. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. And together we will walk in the path of Oh, say shalom, Derabah, Yama say shalom, Aleinu. Oh, Israel, oh, say shalom, Derabah, Yama say shalom, Aleinu. Okay. My guitar down. And the Shabbat Kiddush is found where? On page 90. Having done that, I am going to do the full Kaddish in honor of Cantor Camel, my cantor and my Hebrew school, who could do this at warp speed. And he said, "You'll never get this. Don't try it." Of course, we were kids. I'm an adult, so now I'm going to do it. Amen. Hey, let me go. I'm sure I got you. I'm in the thought. I'm running in my room. The about to come to close rail. I'm going to come to my room. Hey, Shlama Rabba Mishma. I even know because Rabbi in my room. Say shalom to Romavia. Say shalom away to the Alkal Yisrael. Be'emaru. Amen. The blessing for the wine to taste the sweetness of Shabbat wine is on page 90. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kadsho be'avahu ratzon inchalanu zikatanu zikaron l'maaseh bereshit. Ki yom tachila l'mikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'charta yotanu kidashta mikol ha'avim Shabbat kadshecha Ahava uveratzon in Baruch atah Adonai. Here's to all of you. Mekadesh Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim, to life, to your life, everyone's life. And wine was used as a libation in the ancient temple when they were doing the sacrifices. And so we continue that practice even today. And of course, we pray for the day and we want the day to come when we are back in our temple. We have it. This week marks the end of the book of Leviticus with the double portion of Bahar Bechukotai. The portion of Bechukotai contains the Tochacha, that means warning. Here, God tells us that if we abide by the covenant and perform the commandments to follow in his ways, we will thrive and prosper and defeat our enemies. If we stray, then there are 3 levels of warnings, each progressively worse than the previous one. These are dire consequences, and there is the understanding that our God is a jealous God and will visit his wrath on us for our failure to live up to our part of the covenant. Within this warning, however, is God's assurance that he will always be with us no matter what, and will wait for us to come back to Shuvah, to his teaching. In his book, The Prophets, Rabbi Abraham Heschel, and Rabbi Heschel was a prominent 20th century rabbi. He was a Jewish philosopher, and he marched with Martin Luther King in the 60s during the civil rights. So Rabbi Heschel, in his book, The Prophets, discusses the anthropomorphism of God, ascribing human qualities to God, to anything. Different cultures have assigned their own images and values to their images of their respective divine being. The gods of the Vikings, for example, were tall and blonde. The Ethiopian gods were dark with swarthy features, and the Thracian gods were red-haired and had gray eyes. Concomitant with these views were the character traits and personalities of these gods. The Greek and the Roman gods, right, were jealous and vengeful. Anyone who crossed them was doomed to an eternity of torture, like being turned into an animal or having your intestines pecked out by some angry birds. Even today, with any disaster, like this current pandemic, unfortunately, some religious figures are quick to ascribe to his wrath for all sorts of offenses, like, unfortunately, homosexuality. So is God vengeful? That's the question. We've seen times in the Torah when God does indeed call himself a jealous God, like we said. In discussions with Moses, for example, he'd say that he was angry with his people Israel and he was going to destroy them. This is after the golden calf. It was only Moses' intervention and pleading that changed God's mind to spare them. So, reading this, one would imagine God to be a petty being, like the rest of us, who can succumb to petty emotions. How is it that King Solomon, in his Proverbs, in his book of Proverbs, states, "Who is mighty? One who controls their emotions." And yet, the one who created us, who oversees our existence, who is supposed to be merciful and loving and compassionate, throws a temper tantrum at the slightest provocation. First of all, God doesn't. We see those traits in God because we are viewing him from our perception and our values. These are emotions and feelings that we have as human beings. We interpolate that since we were created in God's image, we are imbued with those divine emotions, but in human terms. Well, sort of, but not kind of, really, but not really. Remember that God is a perfect being. Like a big parent, he wants what's best for us. His disciplining is merely to set us on the right path and get us out of the way of hurting ourselves and each other even more than we might be doing already. And that's whatever it takes. This is why the Tochacha comes in three progressive stages. When you were a young child, your parents told you not to eat the cookies. Cookies are delicious and yummy, and you couldn't or wouldn't help yourself, right? Your parents saw you, took the cookie away, and said no. But you didn't listen because cookies are delicious, right? And our parents are a lot smarter and experienced than us, so you figured, well, I'm going to try it, and they saw you try again.
Who doesn't like cookies?
I'm coming
We
to
don't
that.
like cookies.
Patience. We're in the second part of our Tochacha.
I know, you always like your cookies.
You'll get your cookie, don't worry. But what happened the second time, right? We got a slap on a wrist accompanied by an even more severe and emphatic no. Since we all came from a stiff-necked stock, Oref, trying to remember the Hebrew phrase, the Hebrew word for stiff-necked. Oref Yam, something like that. Since we all come from a stiff-necked stock, we tried again, didn't we? Third time. We figured we had it down and could now really get away with it. We were wrong. Yet a third time did our parents catch us. And this time, the third time, we were sent to our room until dinner, which is why we couldn't have a cookie in the first place, because it would spoil our dinner, and our parents only wanted us to have the best nutrition so we could grow up healthy and strong. Such as is with Hashem, and why, by the way, the commandment to honor our parents is extant in the Torah. Our parents are truly doing God's work. It's not about being jealous or vengeful or vindictive. It's about keeping on the straight and narrow. The point is that once we start to stray from our mitzvah, we are led down a dark path. Once we ignore God and his commandments, we start to break more commandments, like not helping the widow or orphan, harassing the stranger, and not giving us charity, etc. This is how society starts to break down and become corrupt. At that point, people don't trust each other, commerce is effective, and people's livelihood and interactions suffer. So by observing the commandments, society runs smoothly, everyone thrives, and we all grow. So we are coming to the end of our service. We're coming to the closing prayers. We have Elena. Then we're going to do the mourner's Kaddish. If you know somebody, if you're observing a yard site, again, if it's been a year since someone died, or it's the anniversary of their death, or it's still within that year, or you just want to, you know somebody, then send in your name and we'll say that.
But so you bring that up, I'll say one thing.
Sure.
You said the Kabbalist passed away.
Oh, the rabbi.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Okay.
Memorial was Tuesday,
Mhm.
which is also associated with
Lag BaOmer.
an overthrow of the Roman Empire revolt.
Right. The Bar Kokhba revolt. You know it well. And how do they observe that in Israel?
It's actually more of like a spiritual thing.
Right. But
It's
what do they
more
do?
of like celebrating exactly what they do on Friday.
What they do is they do the bonfires.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
They have bonfires. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope so. I'm a rabbi. See that?
Yeah.
Yarmulke, beard, tzitzit.
So we should have had a bonfire.
We should have had a bonfire. What can we light? Oh,
Well,
we got our mini bonfires. There we go. Well, we weren't online then, so now we are.
But
We
we're
got
also
a-
not in Israel.
That's right. There you go. So this is our mini bonfire. So we now go to the conclusion of our service, and we turn to page A118 for Aleinu.
Okay.
Page 118. Let us now praise the Lord of all. Let us acclaim the author of creation. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'atei gedula liotzer breshid shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot adama shelo samachakinu kahem v'dor aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, בגבי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת אלוקינו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבתה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר ואדוני למלך הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. If you're standing, you may be seated. We now go to the mourner's Kaddish. And the yard sites, these are the people that passed away this year. Pat Mouter, she just died. Bev, thank you for saying that name. Sherry Beth Reeder, been an icon in our area for years. Ella Burns, Abby Prince's mother. Yolanda Houston, Robert Houston's wife, died from brain cancer. Roberta Constance Snyder, you all know her as Connie Snyder. She's a beautiful person. Mel's wife, we miss her greatly. And that rabbi that just died, Rabbi, what was his name, Matt?
Shimon Bar Yochai.
Shimon Bar Yochai. And of course, we take this time to acknowledge too all the people that died from COVID-19. And my mother's yard site's coming up next week, so I'm going to say one for Susan Rhines, Susan Barbara Rhines, Burma Rhines. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 124 in Kadash. Yitgadal, V'Yitkadash, Shmei Rabban. V'Yamad, Yivrach, V'Yitei, V'Yamlich, V'Yitei, V'Yechon, V'Yechon, V'Yerechon, Beit Yisrael, V'Adalal, V'Zman Kariv, V'Yimru, Amen. V'Yehei Shmei Rabbah, V'Rach, V'Olam, V'Mei, V'Maya, V'Rach, V'Shtabach, V'Ar, V'Yimam, V'Yisei, Yitadar, V'Yitalev, V'Yitalal, Shemei, D'Kudsha, Ela min kol, Birchata, B'Shirata, Tushbachata, V'Nechemata, Da'amiran Ba'alma, V'Yimru, Amen. Yehesh Lam Araba, Mishmaya, V'Yim Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael, V'Yimeru, Amen. V'Seh Shalom B'Rama, V'Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, V'Yal Kol Yisrael, V'Yimeru, Amen. As we've said a prayer for those that have passed on, we say a prayer for those that are in need of healing. In Misha Barak, now notice I said need. Now, of course, on Shabbat, I said we don't ask for things. So we just want to thank God for in advance for helping these people heal. And those people are Yehoshua ben Bora, Rachel bat Sarah, Moshe ben Sarah, Jack Epstein, Mark Taylor, and Ed Woodcock, Hannah bat Shane de la Sarah, Lynn Kaplan, Malcolm Kempner, Mitch Stovall, and Prayer, Noah Silverman, Arlene Barkfield, Jordan Ray, Shendel DeBoer Bakita, George Skolnick, Kelly Reback, Liba, Ilyana Bat Israel, Charlotte Rose, Jacob Thomas Knoxon, Hal Surowitz, Charlene Batova, Sandy Herman, Maury Wolf, Bob Meyer, Dave Rutberg, Yaakov Shimon, Baruch Shalva. How's Becky doing? Is she doing better?
No, we need to pray for her.
Becky Rutberg, okay. Alice Wiener, Kaika Bassett, Marguerite, Diane Frank, she's on the men, May Sachs, Matthew Unwin, Joel Robbins, Naftali Alta, Sarah, Yona Ben Gruna, Katie Rizzo, Sarah Birch, Marshall Litt, Rabbi Yitzchak Hurwitz, Catherine Jones, Sylvia Miskowitz, Ken Mallon, William Fitzpatrick, Mel Snyder, Greg Sterling, Dr. Alexandra Levine, Gloria Bat Rivka Esther. Okay, I know you're on the men, but still, Melissa. Dale Licking, Phil Cohn, Rebecca Farrell, Natalie Solomon, Kevin Lark, Nina Nussbaum, Yehudit Solomon, Martin Garcia Jr., Adam Solomon, Scott Levine, Gene Trosper, Shannon Black, Estel Gita Bat Zelig, Ellen, Jonna Ludwig, and all those that are fighting the COVID-19 virus. Has anybody else come in with any other names? Okay. Then on the inside cover of Siddur Chadash, which we've put in our books, is the Misha Barak prayer that's adapted from the Saturday morning prayer from Billy Freeman. Please join us and let's all send healing thoughts and be thankful for the healing of all those people on the list. Misha Barak Avotinu Bar Habrachah Limotenu. May the source of strength who bless those ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us say Amen. Mishabera Imotinu Bar Habrachah Lamotenu. Bless those who need our healing with refuah shalema, renewal of body, renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. So thank you all for joining us here. Went a little over. Just a couple of things going forward. We are, popular demand. We're going to do a service next Saturday morning. Please join us. And we will do a service the following Friday. The following Friday is Shavuot. It's the end of the counting of the Omer. Oh, I haven't done that. We're going to do that. So the counting of the Omer. We're counting down. And before we end, I am going to do that. Where is the counting of the Omer? In the art scroll, not in this.
Yeah.
Let's see, counting the Omer. Here we go, page 732.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Bev. Hi, Becky. Hi, Helene and Harold. I hope you're all doing good. Alana, we love you guys. We love all of you who have tuned in.
We do.
Everybody.
So the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer ha'yom Shabbat shloshim yom shehin hamisha shavuot v'shnei yamim la'omer. It is the 37th day of the Omer, or the 5th week and 2 days. So we will be doing in 2 weeks. That's when Shavuot falls over. So when we start at 7, since it's going to be light, and we won't be doing a Saturday morning, we're going to do Yisker. Yisker is a prayer that's done 4 times a year. One of the times is Shavuot. We'll do that because it's like doing the afternoon. And then we'll start Shabbat. If we do it at 7, it's still kind of light. It's still the afternoon, and we'll start Shabbat. So we'll do that if you'd like to join us, and we'll have more instructions.
And please join us.
Please join us.
Please.
And I'm thinking that we'll might all be back together in another month, the middle of June, maybe.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome. We have a special oneg prepared for you. Stay tuned. We'll let you know. Again, for all of you that
A
joined us, thank
special
you.
oneg that Alana has contributed
Alana
to.
does, yes,
Yes,
as sponsored. You bet. That's what we're going to do.
That's
We're going to
right.
honor her. We're going to honor all of you.
we're gonna bring them pizzas. It'll be delivered.
It'll be delivered, yes, by someone who doesn't have COVID or had or whatever. Anyway. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Jewish, Shabbat Shalom. If you're not Jewish, thank you for joining us. And may you have a good weekend and hope this was spiritual.
Everybody, love God. That's all what it's about.
Love God and love your fellow neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank
Shabbat
you.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And we are finished here.
So how are you going to do a Saturday?
Same way.